A friend of mine, she was a general manager. I'd worked with her in Macon, and then worked for Gannett, ran a couple of their stations. She says, all these TV stations have, they have all this archival history of the communities they're located in.
Mm-hmm.
She said, but the problem is how do you can't, make copies of videotape and put it like on a disc or something that's more permanent, because those videotapes don't last.
Welcome back to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs. By the way, if you want to be a guest on this program or would like to suggest somebody as a guest, email me right now, joshdj57@gmail.com. That's joshdj57@gmail.com. And our conversation concludes now with KTLA Channel 5 midday anchor, Glenn Walker.
The lot that we're on, I guess they started on the Paramount lot, and then they moved to the lot that we're at now, the Sunset Bronson lot. That was the original Warner Brothers lot.
Oh, wow.
And the soundstage that we're in now, and what's cool is the owners of that lot now, which Tribune, which used to own, all the KTLA and all those other stations like WGN in Chicago, sold it off to Nexstar. But before then, they had a corporate raider that was an owner, and he sold a bunch of, Tribune owned the whole lot.
Wow.
And it was, they could have done so much more with it, and the new owners have done a lot with it, fixed it up. Nexstar's now there. Netflix.
Oh, okay.
The parking lot's now this huge parking garage.
Does News Nation have a bureau there as well?
They're actually over on the Paramount lot for some reason. But every soundstage on that lot has a plaque on it with everything that was ever done there. Like the stage that we're on now, I think it's stage 6. Rin Tin Tin, which was the first TV show about a dog, was done on that soundstage.
Wow.
And stages 1 and 2 at the front of the lot was where they made The Jazz Singer, which was the first movie with sound.
That's right.
So there's a lot of history there. And apparently when they did all this construction, building the Nexstar or the Netflix building as well as the parking garage, digging up under the ground, they found all these tunnels and stuff.
Wow.
And one of the guys that's been working there forever, he told me, he said, oh, yeah, there's like tunnels running all under here. It's like, wow.
Did you guys get to walk inside those tunnels?
I've seen a little bit of some, but not too much.
Oh, okay.
I usually get too busy. But we're in it, and also what was the original KTLA newsroom is now the sales department. But because they just took one big sound stage and built our studio as well as the main part of the newsroom. But the old part of the building, which is, you can tell it's an older building, even though it's got a nicer facade now, they can never tear it down because that's where Bugs Bunny was created.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. But it's kind of cool that, between 30 Rock and Columbia Square and the lot I'm on now, it's cool to work places where there's a lot of history like that.
And that the buildings are still there, especially with Columbia Square. A couple of years ago, there was talk about tearing it down.
Yeah.
And now they've restored the showroom shine of it with a beautiful neon that used to, accent the building. They put it back up. Now, granted, it's not the CBS sign, but they do have like the new house sign with the neon in tribute to what CBS had. Because sometime in the early 60s, they took the beautiful neon off and put the simple and plain block letters, which had no character whatsoever. Of course, by that point, it was no longer a radio building anyway, but still, it was nice to see it come back and have the look of it. And I think KTLA is the only station right now that's even in Hollywood.
It is. Interesting story. We were the new owners when Netflix came in. They wanted the whole property, so the landlord tried to force us out. But Corsini, he had a lot of juice. He called the mayor and said, looks like we're leaving L.A. He goes, we're going to go to Burbank, and so the mayor put a stop to that because they were literally going to. The owners of where WNBC or KNBC used to be, they weren't going to give us. They were going to build us a whole new building.
Wow!
So it was either that or stay where we are. And frankly, we probably should have left because the rent is ridiculous. But then again, Tribune should have never sold it because they had a gold mine there. A great TV production facility, movie facility, and they never. It was always a few shows done on the lot, but when Tribune owned it, they didn't do nearly what they could have done. And now
Oh, yeah.
It's actually not bustling now since COVID. It's all kind of died, but I think there's at least something going on in one of the other sound stages.
Well, I remember, as a kid going to there the first time. It was a game show called Face the Music. It was hosted by Ron Ely, the Tarzan from the 1960s. And so my dad and I went there with one of his coworkers and his coworker's girlfriend, and we attended 3 tapings. And then about 3 months later, my dad was a contestant on the show.
Yeah.
And he did lose the game. However, he made it to the bonus round. And the funny thing is that he bowled in a league on Tuesday nights. And so the day the episode aired, my dad was in the bowling league. And my mom said, yeah, I saw the episode. I was like, oh, man, we missed it. And it didn't show in summer repeats. But then about 9 years later, the USA Network was running the show in repeats. And so my dad came home early from work. I was sick that day from school, and so we decided to turn on Face the Music. And here's our champion, John, and he's got a winning so far 4,000 in prizes. His opponent is going to be one of these 3 players. I'm like, Dad! And so we had a great father-son moment, and neither my dad nor the champion could answer the $10,000 tune.
Yeah.
So my dad was able to answer the $5,000 tune, but couldn't guess who the famous person was.
Yeah.
From their baby, infanthood to, current day photo. But then the champion guessed the $4,000 tune and guessed who the person was. And then we looked at the prizes the champion won. I was like, boy, yeah, those are really crummy prizes. And my dad said, yeah, he doesn't look too excited about it either. So here I was all bummed out as a little kid that my dad didn't win, but it was like, well, those prizes wouldn't have been great anyway. So
that's funny.
But that was one of many. And then What's Happening was made there, and at the time it was called Golden West Television Facilities. And so when you see shows made in the 70s there, that's what they called it, because Gene Autry's Golden West Broadcasters owned that till I think the early to mid 80s.
Yeah, he sold to Tribune at that point.
To Tribune Broadcasting.
Actually, he still owned it, I think, into the 90s, because I was prime ticket from 90 to 95. And I think Autry still owned KTLA because they were showing Angel games, I think.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they moved to, I think, who did the Angels move to? I remember the Dodgers were on KTLA 5 later on, which was just so weird because KTTV 11 was like their flagship station since they'd moved to L.A., and now you have to have cable even to watch Dodger road games, which is so bumming.
It's funny that there's such a big impact now on sports television here in L.A. because the Dodgers resisted doing televising games. They would only do a handful of games a year. They didn't want a full-time – like Prime Ticket kept always trying to make a deal with them, and they wouldn't do it. So we did the Angels. And Massengill used to go down there and do like the pregame show for them. And but the Dodgers didn't really catch on. And they actually had they had a sports channel or something.
Yeah.
But you had to pay for it. You had to pay extra for it or something.
Yeah, I forget which one it was called. It had a certain name to it. I'm blanking on it.
But I think even they didn't televise every game.
No, I mean, I remember back in, I think, the early 80s when you had On TV, which was a movie channel that was on around the clock, but it wasn't with cable. It was a special subscription.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a commercial where this guy probably in his 70s like, yeah, On TV has all the Dodger home games when I can't make it out to the stadium. But I think by that time, On TV was gone. It merged with Select TV, which now that's gone too.
Yeah, thank God they televise all the games now because it's too expensive to go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love going to the minor league games because it's less expensive. It's only like $6 for parking, and the hot dogs are like $2 or $3 instead of $7 or $8. It's not even Farmer John dogs anymore at Dodger Stadium. It's like, to me, if it's not a Farmer John, it's not really a Dodger dog. That's why I call it the pretend or the
But you know what, though? They've done a great job of the renovations for that stadium. Because remember, there was talk for a while of them going down, building a stadium next to Staples Center. And at the time, I thought it was a good idea, but because, it is a pain in the butt getting in and out of that place.
Oh, yeah.
It's better now than it used to be. But the renovations they've done and the way the stadium is built into the side of the hill, with that first game I went to in 1980, seeing how that all was, to me, was like, man, this place is amazing.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about it is they put the chevron-shaped scoreboards back on both sides. Yeah. Bigger with 1080 pixel, and then they also widened the concourses, all new restrooms, which is great because beforehand the ladies would be like a beeline out the door. But now they made them 60% larger for women, 30% larger for guys. New concessions, and then, of course, new locker rooms for the players. In fact, they just got a brand new locker room this year again.
I know.
Which was like, wait a minute, I thought they...
Yeah, the one they had wasn't bad.
Wasn't bad. Because I remember beforehand they said that they had to share the weight room with a visiting team before the 2013 renovations. I'm like, are you kidding me? They've got all that land and it's that cramped, but I guess, they weren't... Wrigley Field did the same thing for the Cubs, where actually... The locker room, some of it is underneath the field because they got a bigger locker room. That's what you have to do.
Yes, they go underground. They've done the same thing with Fenway Park too.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
they've done improved that a lot too.
Plus, they put a lot of things in Dodger Stadium, like the signage outside that directs you to the different parts.
Yeah,
O'Malley originally thought about having chevron-shaped signs doing that, but they never did build that until just a couple of years ago.
He was going to have it where people could stay in their car.
Really?
The one level you could drive up,
park
your car, and look out and watch the game, and it was like some environmental issues or something. That's not going to work.
That's funny. I love that. Now at KTLA 5, with it having so much history, if somebody said to you, Glenn, I want you to get me a story of Stan Chambers covering the grand opening of Disneyland, how soon could you get access to that if they told you to do that?
Apparently, a lot of the archive video is at UCLA. So UCLA is like the keeper of all of that stuff.
Wow.
So that's, I don't know how hard or easy it would be to dig all that stuff up. I mean, everybody's got that's an interesting thing about TV stations. Like a friend of mine, she was a general manager. I'd worked with her in Macon, and she worked for Gannett, ran a couple of their stations. She says, all these TV stations have, they have all this archival history of the communities they're located in. She said, but the problem is how do you can't, make copies of videotape and put it like on a disc or something that's more permanent, because those videotapes don't last. And I remember at CBS we had this huge room, and it's like, it's perplexing. What are we going to do with all this? You got to dub it over to something. So a lot of this great TV history or things in the community that have been chronicled over the years, it's, you can't keep it.
Yeah. I know that Obsolete Video Services has been getting a lot of footage from Los Angeles, but also other markets. What they do is they do this baking system where you bake the tape and then they transfer it over to the digital, to the computer.
Yeah. But see, it's all done in real time.
Done in real time,
You can't fast forward or anything like that. So it's like if you've got, 1 million hours of videotape or film, it's going to take 1 million hours to dub over to something that's for safekeeping, and it's just it costs too much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Johnny Carson, when he did The Tonight Show, the first 10 years, with the exception of some, tapes on the training circuit and most of those episodes were never saved. And so one of the deals he made when he moved to Burbank was he says, you're going to save every single episode. You're going to put it in a humidified room somewhere, I think in Nebraska or Wyoming in a basement, so that way the tape doesn't deteriorate. And Desi Arnaz did the same thing with I Love Lucy. In fact, I think that was the first show really that got saved. But they've found kinescopes here and there. But
those are all so weird and washed out.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because I'm writing a book on Jack Barry, the game show host, and he worked for KTLA for about 3 years in the early 60s, and so I've only seen still photographs of the shows he hosted. He hosted a couple game shows. One was called By the Numbers, Adagrams, and then You Don't Say, and then he hosted the Jack Barry Show, which also featured in one of its segments Juvenile Jury, which he did in the 40s and 50s. I've seen a lot of great still photographs, but I've never seen any of those episodes ever anywhere popped up, which I'm wondering, is one of those tapes that they have, at UCLA, an episode of the Jack Barry Show or one of the game shows he hosted. I'm just so curious about that, and I'm sure people are curious about other things as well.
Game show host. Now there's a gig. You shoot all those shows, and they only work a couple of months a year.
Yeah.
They shoot all those shows. They got the rest of the year off, and they're all, wealthy as hell.
Yeah, well, that happened. Jack Nars, when he was hosting Concentration back in the 70s, I think he taped 5 shows a day, 6 days a week for, I think, 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And then that was it. You know, he was off the rest of the year. And they just, since they had no returning champions, they just, pretty much aired the full 36 weeks or so of first run. And then they'd.
That's a gig.
I know. I was like, man, I was envious of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unreal.
What was the best piece of advice you've ever received, by the way?
I don't know that it was necessarily advice, but one thing I learned from Van Miller. Now, in a town like Buffalo, it's the 35th TV market, voice of the Buffalo Bills, he's like a movie star. Mm-hmm. But people would, somebody bring somebody to the TV station or whatever, or at a Bills game and introduce them to Van, and they'd be all starstruck. But he would take time to. Like he used to always play this lame joke on women. He'd go, "Oh, it's a beautiful earring. What happened to the other?" And they don't go. He goes, "I got you." But he would give them 5 minutes of his time or a couple of minutes of his time, and I think it made a big impression on me. Is he didn't look down on anybody, and just always were interested in who they were and where they came from and that type of thing. And I've always tried to do the same thing. Like, people come through all the time. People bring somebody in the studio during a newscast, and, so you try to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And for those who want to get into newscasting, what's your advice to them?
Go to law school. Don't do it. I don't know. The business has changed so much, and I think a lot of what I see is people try to move up too fast, and I kind of wish myself. I mean, listen, I didn't get to LA till it was 3 or 4 other markets, and spent a lot of time in those markets. So when I got to LA, I felt like I was ready, and I felt like I wasn't ready for New York. But I got to 5 years later, I was ready for New York. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of people now, they'll get a job and they'll be, say, in Fresno, Palm Springs, and then they're in LA. And there's not that gradual. Like I went from really small markets to Buffalo, which is the 35th market, but it had major league sports. Yeah. Only 2 teams, but major league sports. And then I came to LA, and it was more easy to acclimate. So, but see, a lot of people crash and burn, and they don't appreciate the journey or paying the dues to get there. And that's what you got to do, because if you don't, you won't last.
It's kind of like, my grandpa worked for the telephone company.
Yeah.
And he got to start laying as a lineman.
Laying cable.
And worked his way up into the executive office. And by the, probably mid to late 50s, he was an executive.
Yeah.
And but then in the late 60s, the AT&T started hiring people fresh out of college to be executives above my grandpa. And as my grandpa put it, these guys didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Yeah.
And so by the early 80s is when Ma Bell was broken up, and that was one of the main reasons. In fact, my grandpa was called to testify before Congress on what was going on. And so they should have had them do what my grandpa did. He went to college and laid telephone line and worked his way up in the company, rather than just, plopping him there with no experience.
Yeah, it's... you see a lot of, but so basically my advice is don't enjoy the journey, appreciate where you are, learn everything you can before you move on, because, you don't want to get someplace, and if you crash and burn, you're gonna tumble all the way back, unless you just move on and decide to do something else for a living.
True. Yeah. Well, Glenn, thanks for being here. It's anything you want to add to the conversation?
It's the first time I ever did a podcast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Just sitting down, shooting a bowl, having a conversation.
There we go.
Nothing wrong with that.
I got to ask you, in New York City, since they have the best pizzas and best delis, what was your favorite pizza place and your favorite deli?
Oh, my God. Favorite deli. I used to go to a place in Midtown. I think it was the Stage Deli.
Yeah.
And then Cat's Deli was great, the one famous for When Harry Met Sally. And pizza, it's funny. There was a place like 30 Rock is on 49th and 50th. There was a place on 48th Street. It was just a little bodega. Great slices of get that white cheese pizza in there. But my favorite Italian restaurant is Patsy's in Midtown. That's an old Italian restaurant. It's been there forever. That's where I recommend people go have Italian food in New York City.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks for being with us. And
my pleasure.
Until next time, this is Josh Jacobs for the Talking Archive. Keep your mind on the things above. And as you hit that open road, don't be a slow down spectator.